So, over the next few weeks, we will be traveling through John's Gospel, and today we are booked in the 3rd chapter and the first 17 verses therein. And I want to introduce you to Nicodemus, and many of you already know him. He is a Pharisee, which meant he was a part of the religious elite. And the writer suggests also that he was a leader of the Jews, which meant additionally he was a member of the Sanhedrin Council, the exclusive elitist group of rabbis. And he had one pressing problem. He was a member of the team that was not for Jesus. Now, I want to back up to the 2nd chapter just a bit. One of the places he probably encountered Jesus was at the wedding of Cana of Galilee. And in this day, in villages, when there were weddings, there was plenty of wine. And the idea was that wine was a symbol of strength for the journey. And this particular wedding, they actually run out of wine. And the symbolic suggestion is that the couple will run out of resources. As a married couple, they won't have strength, they won't have enough power to complete their journey. This was a little bit of a crisis. If not, but a symbolic crisis. It was crisis enough for Mary to say to Jesus, listen, they have run out of wine. Now Jesus' reply was, well, yeah, I don't have nothing to do with that. My time hasn't even come. I'm not here to show off my messianic powers. She ignores Jesus, as mothers can do, and turns to the servants and says to them, do what he says. Now, I'm almost certain that one of the reasons this was such a big deal was because of the guests at this wedding. And how embarrassing this must have been to run out of wine, especially when you have Pharisees and possibly a member of the Sanhedrin Council attending your wedding. If Nicodemus were there, and I'm suggesting that it's highly possible he was, because this wedding is the first miracle that we see in John's Gospel, where Jesus somehow, some way, takes water and transforms it into wine. This might be the moment that Nicodemus knows that Jesus is not just a rumor. He's real. He's the real deal. Nicodemus saw it with his own eyes. And we all have our concept of what miracles are. Miracles are different things to different people. A miracle is not always splitting the Red Sea open. A miracle is not always walking up to a person in a wheelchair and lifting them out and have them running a marathon the next week. Sometimes miracles are transformations of the heart. Sometimes the ability to forgive somebody that you have had locked in the chambers of unforgiveness, that's miraculous. Somehow seeing a child being transformed and turned around, that's miraculous enough. When you get to the point where you are at wit's end and there's nowhere else to go, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, a door opens. For some of us, that's enough miracle. And so miracles mean different things, but for Nicodemus, for this crisis of running out of wine for all of these people, and out of the blink of an eye, there's plenty. Something about this Jesus is real. It's not a rumor this time. It's not a possibility this time. Could this be the one who is to come? 3rd chapter, we follow him going to Jesus by night. And all throughout John's gospel, he loves to play between night and day, darkness and light. It's one of John's favorite things. The light came to be the life of all people, and the darkness did not overcome it. It's from John's gospel. Work while it is day, for night cometh, and no one can work. That's John's gospel. And here, we find that Nicodemus comes by night to have a conversation with Jesus. And he begins the conversation very pleasantly. It's a very nice thing to do, to come up and say what Nicodemus said. We know that you're not just anybody. We know that you are sent from God, because nobody else can do the things that you do but someone from God. Because I saw what you did with that wine, the water, and turned it into wine. I saw what you did. You're the real deal, I think. Instead of Jesus saying, hey, well, thank you for coming. Thank you for looking me up tonight and coming to seek me out. That means so much to me. Thank you. I appreciate your affirmation. How kind of you to say that. Jesus didn't do anything to that. He went straight to, he said immediately, no good evening, no how you doing, no how's it been going. He immediately says, unless you have been born again, you will not understand the things of the kingdom. Now, where does that come from? The problem Nicodemus had was that he believed, he was moved, he was inspired, but ashamed. He wasn't willing to admit it. You know, I think it's Beyonce. I could be wrong. But the song, I think it's Beyonce, I could be wrong, but the song, she's calling her friend, and if it's not Beyonce, I'll tell you who it is. But she's calling her friend, her companion, and he's talking very generally. Yeah, very generally. And she says, what's the matter? Say my name. Is that what I say? Okay. I do that. I'm just testing out. Say my name. And in fact, don't just say my name. Tell me that you love me. In other words, who are you around? And this was a Nicodemus position. The only way he could really get a conversation with Jesus without being embarrassed about it was to go at night and disguise the conversation in such a way where it's not just him coming, it's a group. We know that you are a teacher sent from God. And who are the we? I tell you, the we are a group of people called secret Christians. Wow. And they're all throughout John's gospel. And it is one of the biggest offenses that John writes with. He couldn't deal with secret Christians. And he had a way of calling them out as much as he could throughout the gospel. Nicodemus was one of the leaders of this small group of secret Christians. They believed, but they needed a little more assurance that they wouldn't lose their job before they came out with it. They were Christians, but they were in a closet, if you will. They weren't really ready to be bold about their faith. They weren't really ready to share it openly. They weren't ready to deal with being outcasted and being ridiculed for following a carpenter from Nazareth who has a way with water and wine. They struggle with that. It's not uncommon, really, secret Christians. Some people, none of whom are present today, some people struggle with expressions of faith. There have been times that I've been in places like a hospital corridor and we went and we prayed, and some people felt embarrassed about that. There have been times I know people didn't want to go knocking on doors inviting folk to their church because they didn't want a door slammed in their face, or they didn't want to be told to go somewhere else and don't come back anymore. They didn't want to be seen like one of those Jehovah's Witnesses. So we'll just put a sign up and pray that people come, but we're not going out knocking on doors. Or you're in the lunch cafeteria at school and you notice that a bunch of people are teasing one person who's a friend of yours, but this time you're going to step back because you don't want the isolation that comes with befriending somebody unpopular. Secret Christians. And some of them struggle with themselves. There's deep inner turmoil. Some of them come to church even, and the music is getting to their souls and spirits, but they can't really react to it because they're not that kind of Christian.
Come on now, come on.
They're not the kind, we don't do that kind of thing. We're reserved. And as a result of that, you know, we have our own style of worship. And I just can't imagine any style of worship that's calm on entrance into the kingdom of God.
Yes.
I'm not sure that there is such, but there are some. And the foot tapping, you know, it gets like that, and then it goes up to your knees and the leg starts tapping and you stop it right there. Because you don't want to be the only one saying amen.
That's right. Come on.
And you don't want to be the only one standing up, raising your hand while everybody else is sitting down. You don't want to be singled out. And this is where Nicodemus was. And the answer to this problem was, sir, out of all the things you have, a card-carrying Pharisee, a member of the Sanhedrin Council, none of that means anything. You coming here at night to say you believe, that doesn't mean anything. Until you are born again. How can this be, sir? How can this be? No one can re-enter this month. You cannot start over like that. Jesus wants Nicodemus to know it's not about starting over, it's about starting afresh. It's about starting anew. It's about launching into a life. It's about choosing to thrive and not just exist. It's the difference between whether we are on fire or whether we are just a dwindling flame. It's the difference between the kind of life that you want and the kind that you have. I am saying to you, Nicodemus, that you will not ever believe any of these things from heaven if you can't even get with the earthly things that I'm trying to share with you. I want you to know this. This is the bottom line. You don't have time to be secretive about your faith and claim me at nighttime of all things. Tired of nighttime Christians. This is not a call for part-time lovers. This is a call for those who walk with me in public every day. Those who dare to believe every single day And sometimes your faith is going to put you in a very tight spot where you're going to be forced to be an outsider.
Yes.
Where you're going to force to stick out. Where you're going to be forced to clap when nobody else is. To cry when nobody else is. When you're going to be forced to remember the good things of who God is and forget about what everybody else is thinking. It's almost like if you've been ill for a long time, or if you all of a sudden hit the jackpot. That's not one of those moments, and all of a sudden you've been healed. That's not one of those moments where you will just kind of be status quo. You will be ignited and excited, and you will be thrilled because you have a new possibility for life. And those of us who walk with God every day, you know what we have? We have a new possibility for life. This thing renews every single day. What you didn't get done yesterday, we have a new opportunity today to try again, to be better. And that ought to be your prayer. Lord, make me better today than I was yesterday. But I'm trying to tell you, Nicodemus, is this: for God so loved the world. I'm not here to condemn. I'm not here to make you feel bad about yourself. I'm not here to create a religious community that's only for those who get it. I'm here to expand the entire gospel because God so loved the world. Not just part of it. God so loved the world, not just a group of it, that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believes in him will not perish but have everlasting life. And can we unpack this just a little bit?
Yes.
And then I'm out. Unpack it. Number one, for God to love the world must translate to mean God loves me.
Yes. Amen.
God loves me. Did you know that this is the first time in all of the scripture where God is said to love? First time. But it's not the first time we've seen God's love. But Jesus comes to announce that God loves you. I think the first time we might have seen it to its fullest magnitude was when he takes Abraham and tells Abraham to sacrifice his son, Isaac, that they had gone through so much to have. And Abraham is faithful, and Abraham obeys, and he walks his son up that hill, and he prepares the altar, and he prepares the fire. And his son looks up with those little boy eyes and says, "Dad, where is the sacrifice?" Abraham, whose heart breaks every second. And Abraham says, well, God will provide the sacrifice. And Abraham continued to do what God has told him to do. Just then, God looks at Abraham obeying and being vigilant and doing exactly what God asked him to do. God sees that as righteousness. And God sends the angel down to stop the act entirely. Us to say this: Abraham, hold up. It's all right. Don't sacrifice Isaac. Don't sacrifice your son. I'll sacrifice mine.
Wow.
There's a ram in the bush over there. Go get that.
Hallelujah.
And I'll sacrifice mine. For God so loves the world that he gave his only begotten Son. Now those are the first two steps. God loves, God gave. And the third part is you and I. That whosoever believes, Whosoever believes. You don't have to get your credit approved. Whosoever believes. You don't have to be in an income bracket. Whosoever believes. You don't have to have a certain type of resume. Whosoever believes.
Work it out.
And check this out. You don't have to have a flawless pass. Whosoever believes. What you do have to have is believe. You have to trust. And you have to trust in times when trust doesn't make sense. And you have to believe in times when belief doesn't seem that it will fulfill itself. You have to stand firm. You have to fight through it. You have to walk through it. You have to hold your head up through it. You have to not be deterred through it. You have to cry through it sometimes. You have to crawl through it. But whatever you do, trust. Don't turn back. Trust and believe. In the neighborhood, we used to hear folks say, look, trust and believe. It's going to be this. And that's what we have to do. Trust and believe that the one who called us will sustain us. The one who started us off will see us through. Trust and believe. I didn't come this far to be left behind. Trust and believe. My whole life might have to be changed, but I'm going to trust. I'm going to believe that there is something after this. I'm going to believe there's a job after this one. I'm going to believe there's a house after this one. I'm going to believe there's a tomorrow after this one. I will not be defeated. I will not be damned. I will not be dismal. I will stand firm until God.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Until God changes. Until my help comes. I will believe. And then, these are the first 3 steps. There's one last one I want to introduce you to. So that you will not, whoever believes, you have this belief so that you will not perish, but have everlasting life. You see, these steps, it's like having a huge bowl of water that's too big to drink from. You can't lift it, it's too heavy. And that's God's love. You can't lift that thing. It's too heavy. And to experience God's love, He gives you a smaller, manageable container of water. We call Him Jesus. He is the way we experience God. He is the conduit to experience. You can't experience God without going into Jesus. And now that you have this manageable thing, you're able to drink, and your part of drinking is your belief. I believe it. But now, this last part, you don't have to perish. And perishing is not necessarily the same thing as dying. You don't have to die to be dead. You can be dead while you're breathing. Oh, bunch of folk wake up every morning dead. Go to bed every night dead. Drive to work dead. No hope, no vision, no joy, no peace, no comfort, no plan, no strategy, dead. That's what it means to perish. That's why we have non-perishable items. Because they do not spoil, they do not weaken, they last, they survive. They have some kind of chemical in it to make sure it doesn't go bad. You can keep that thing on the shelf for a year. And you, my friends, get a non-perishable status. Now the good news is, you really don't have to die to get eternal life either. Eternal life, it doesn't just come to folk who are in a box. Eternal life starts at the moment you believe. Eternal life starts at the moment you say yes. Eternal life starts when you grab hold of his hand, his unchanging hand. Eternal life starts when you make him your Lord and you subject yourself to him so that when the day comes that you do die, you're not dying, you're just moving to another room.
Thank you, Jesus.
Moving somewhere else.
Yes.
Have you ever noticed how people who deeply love God, nobody's really crying at their funerals? Because they know where they are.
Amen.
They know what they're doing. They are celebrating and enjoying life eternal. And I'm here to let you know that you do not have to die to get eternal life. You can have it right now.
Yes.
And this is what the gift is to Nicodemus. You're walking around saying, yeah, I believe, but don't you tell a soul. He touched me, but don't tell a soul. He turned me around, but don't tell a soul.
Hallelujah.
He gave me a new path, but don't tell me a soul. He gave me a second and third chance, but don't tell a soul. Keep it to yourself. I don't want to be outcasted like that. I love him, but I ain't trying to be a fanatic. I'm not trying to be one of those people that that's all they talk about is God and Jesus. I don't want to be one of those. But when you've been blessed,
Come on.
Yes.
Come on.
when you come out of the storm,
Oh, yes.
I don't know if any of you have ever come out of the storm, but when you come out of the storm and you still walking,
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
when folk predicted your downfall, you still standing.